Welcome the rare gems. The moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you start living on your own terms. Being a Sigma female isn't something you choose, it's something you realize. It's that deep, unshakable feeling that you don't quite fit into the boxes society tries to force you into. You're not drawn to mindless socializing, you don't chase validation, and you refuse to play by the unwritten rules that everyone else follows without question. And that's exactly why you stand out. Your journey is not easy. At times it feels like a silent battle. Navigating a world that doesn't understand you, cutting ties with people who drain your energy, and accepting that solitude is often the price of authenticity. But here's the truth. Every stage you go through shapes you into something unbreakable. The confusion, the frustration, the moments of doubt, they all serve a purpose. They sharpen your mind, strengthen your resilience, and push you to create a life that is truly yours. You don't need to be understood. You don't need permission. What you need is to trust yourself, embrace your path, and stop questioning whether you're too different. You are exactly as you were meant to be, and that is your greatest advantage. Let's explore 10 unexpected stages every Sigma female goes through. Number 1. The awakening of isolation. There comes a moment when a Sigma female realizes she's not like everyone else. But it doesn't happen overnight, it sneaks up on her like a quiet storm building in the distance. At first she assumes she's just introverted, maybe a little different, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then she starts noticing things. She watches people mold themselves to fit in, laughing at jokes they don't find funny, agreeing with things they secretly despise, bending their personalities just to be accepted. She sees how friendships and relationships often feel more like transactions, people giving just enough to get something in return. And she can't understand why. Why do people need so much approval? Why is everyone playing a role? This is where the confusion sets in. She wonders if something is wrong with her. Why doesn't she crave the same things? Why does small talk feel exhausting? Why does she feel more at home in her own thoughts than in a crowd? For a while she tries to fit in. She forces conversations, plays along, even pretends to care about things that don't interest her. But it never lasts, because pretending to be someone she's not feels suffocating. And then something shifts. She stops trying, she stops seeking, she stops apologizing for being different. This is the awakening, the moment she realizes she's not broken, she's just wired differently. She's not meant to blend in. She's meant to move on her own terms, to find depth in a world obsessed with surface-level connections, to be her own source of validation. Yes, it's isolating. Yes, it's uncomfortable at first. But what she doesn't know yet is that this stage is necessary. Because what comes after it? Clarity, strength, a deep understanding that the solitude she once feared isn't a curse. It's a gift, a power that most will never understand, and that changes everything. Number 2. The burning bridges stage. There comes a time when the Sigma female looks around and realizes she's been carrying dead weight. People who drain her energy, friendships that feel one-sided, and connections that exist only out of habit, not meaning. And that's when she makes the decision that most people don't have the courage to make. She walks away. Not gradually, not with long-winded explanations, just gone. This isn't about drama or making a statement. It's about survival. She spent too much time being the listener, the problem solver, the one who understands everyone but is rarely understood. And one day it just clicks. She doesn't have to keep doing this. She doesn't have to be available to people who only show up when they need something. She doesn't have to maintain relationships that feel like a slow drain on her peace. So she burns the bridge, and she doesn't look back. The reactions are predictable. Some are confused, some are bitter, some try to guilt-trip her back into their lives with fake concern. Are you okay? You've been distant. Others take it as a personal attack, as if her decision to prioritize herself is a betrayal, but she doesn't waste time explaining herself, because she's learned something most people haven't. Closure is a myth. People don't want explanations, they want access. And she's not giving it anymore. At first it feels brutal, even cold, but soon she realizes something incredible. She feels lighter. Her mind is clearer. Her days feel peaceful instead of exhausting, and she wonders why she didn't do this sooner. because now her time and energy belong to her, not to people who never deserved it. This stage isn't easy, it's uncomfortable, it forces her to stand firm when others try to pull her back. But in the end, it's one of the most powerful shifts in her life. Because once she learns to walk away without guilt, she becomes unstoppable. And number 3, the "why do I even bother" phase. At some point, after burning bridges and stepping away from the noise, the Sigma female reaches a strange and unsettling stage, one where she questions whether she should even bother engaging with the world at all. She's seen too much. The fakeness, the manipulation, the endless cycle of people using and discarding each other. It all seems exhausting, pointless. She wonders if it would be easier to just disappear entirely, to retreat so far into her own world that she no longer has to deal with shallow conversations, mind games, or the constant disappointment of realizing how few people truly understand her. For a while, she leans into this isolation. She ignores messages, cancels plans, and withdraws. She enjoys the quiet, the peace of not having to explain herself or filter her thoughts for the sake of others. But then, something unexpected happens. She starts feeling disconnected in a way that even she doesn't enjoy. Not lonely exactly, but detached, like an observer in her own life rather than a participant. And that's when she realizes full isolation isn't the answer. She doesn't need to be part of the crowd, but she also doesn't have to erase herself from the world. Instead, she learns to exist on her own terms, moving through life like a ghost when she wants to, fully present when she chooses. She stops forcing herself into spaces that drain her, but she also stops running from the few people and experiences that actually add value to her life. This stage teaches her balance. She doesn't have to fit in, but she also doesn't have to disappear. She can engage without being consumed, observe without getting entangled, and exist without compromising who she is. Once she understands this, everything changes. She no longer struggles to find her place, because she's finally realized she doesn't need one. She creates her own. Number 4. The transformation of loneliness into power. At first, loneliness feels like an enemy. It creeps in after she's distanced herself from draining relationships, after she's stopped forcing herself to fit in. The silence is loud. The absence of constant social noise feels unnatural at first, even for someone who has always preferred her own company. But then, something shifts. She stops seeing solitude as something to escape and starts using it as fuel. While others chase distractions, mindless entertainment, fleeting validation, empty conversations, she turns inward. She sharpens her mind, pushes her limits, and builds the kind of skills that set her apart. She doesn't just sit in her solitude, she thrives in it. This is where the real transformation happens. She picks up books instead of mindless scrolling. She learns, she trains, she refines. She pours her energy into something meaningful, while others waste theirs proving things to people who don't even matter. At first, no one notices. People assume she's just keeping to herself. But then, little by little, the results start showing. The way she speaks carries more weight. The way she moves is more intentional. The way she approaches life is sharper, more disciplined, more strategic. And by the time people realize what she's been doing, she's already 10 steps ahead. She no longer needs approval because she's built something stronger, self-respect. She no longer seeks distractions because she's created a life too fulfilling to escape from. And she no longer feels the sting of loneliness because solitude has become her greatest advantage. This stage changes everything. Because once she learns to harness the power of being alone, she becomes untouchable. She doesn't need the world's permission. She doesn't need to prove anything. She just moves, silently, deliberately, with purpose. And when she finally steps back into the world, she's not the same person who walked away. She's evolved. She's built herself into something unshakable. And nothing is more powerful than that. Number 5. The people start copying stage. Something strange happens when a Sigma female fully steps into her power. People who once dismissed her, misunderstood her, or even mocked her suddenly start copying her. At first it's subtle. Someone starts using the same phrases she does. Another begins mirroring her mindset, preaching the very independence they once questioned her for. Even her mannerisms, the way she carries herself, the way she interacts with the world, start appearing in those around her. The irony is almost laughable. These are the same people who once called her too intense, too distant, or too independent. The same ones who used to ask, "Why don't you just lighten up? Why don't you just be more like everyone else?" Now suddenly they admire what they once dismissed. But here's the thing. True independence cannot be faked. She sees right through it. She watches as people attempt to mimic her detachment, but crumble when they don't get validation. She notices them trying to adopt her mindset, but they lack the discipline and self-awareness to live it. They think being like her is about looking a certain way, acting a certain way. But they don't understand that it's about being a certain way. Being a Sigma female isn't about aesthetics or attitude. It's about having the courage to stand alone when necessary. It's about moving through life with quiet confidence, knowing you don't need approval to be valuable. It's about doing the inner work, something most people are unwilling to do. So while they copy the surface, they will never grasp the depth. She doesn't waste time calling them out. She doesn't need to, because the difference between someone who truly embodies this mindset and someone who only imitates it becomes obvious over time. She just keeps moving, keeps evolving, while they struggle to maintain the illusion. And eventually the trend fades, but she remains. Because she was never trying to be anyone else. She was just being herself, and that can't be replicated. Number 6. The ruthless efficiency shift. At some point, something clicks. The Sigma female realizes just how much energy she has wasted on things that don't serve her, pointless conversations, meaningless obligations, shallow interactions. And just like that, she stops. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't need to. She simply moves differently. Her time is no longer up for grabs. If a conversation lacks depth, she lets it die instead of forcing it. If a person's presence drains her, she distances herself without explanation. If a task doesn't push her forward, she cuts it from her life entirely. This isn't rudeness, it's precision. She starts moving with ruthless efficiency, pouring her energy only into what truly matters. While others spread themselves thin trying to be everywhere, please everyone, and do everything, she focuses. And because of that, she achieves more in a month than most do in a year. She doesn't waste words either. Small talk, gone. Sugarcoating, not her style. She speaks only when necessary, and when she does, every word carries weight. People start noticing. When she talks, people listen, because they know she wouldn't say it if it weren't important. This shift doesn't just change how she moves, it changes how people perceive her. She becomes an enigma, someone others can't quite figure out. They wonder why she's always composed, always 10 steps ahead, always unbothered by the things that stress everyone else out. The truth? She simply removed the excess. She doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't waste. She conserves her energy for what matters and walks away from what doesn't. And that's why she moves faster, thinks clearer, and stands stronger than most. This stage is what sets her apart for good, because once she steps into this level of efficiency, there's no going back. She's no longer just surviving, she's thriving, building, advancing, and while others are busy burning out, she's mastering the art of doing more, with less. Number 7. The unintentional intimidation phase. She doesn't try to intimidate people, it just happens. At this stage, the Sigma female has refined her presence to the point where she doesn't need to prove anything. She speaks when necessary, moves with purpose, and never overshares. There's a calmness about her that unnerves people, a silence that demands respect, a gaze that cuts through facades like a blade. She doesn't react the way others expect. She doesn't force laughter to ease tension. She doesn't fill awkward silences with meaningless chatter. She doesn't flinch when people try to provoke her, and that alone is enough to make people uncomfortable, because most are used to masks. They're used to people seeking approval, softening their edges to fit in, playing along with social games. But she's different. She doesn't engage in performances. She doesn't shrink herself to make others feel better. She exists as she is unapologetically. And that terrifies people. They project their insecurities onto her, labeling her as cold, arrogant, or unapproachable. Not because she is, but because she doesn't give them the usual cues of validation. They can't figure her out, and that frustrates them. They mistake her silence for judgment. They mistake her confidence for arrogance. They mistake her boundaries for rejection. But the truth is, she's not thinking about them at all. She's simply existing, focused on her own path. She's not here to play mind games or comfort fragile egos, and those who can't handle that, they remove themselves. Meanwhile, the ones who do understand, the rare few who recognize strength when they see it, are drawn to her even more. Because they see what others fail to. She's not intimidating, she's just real. And that, in a world full of illusions, is a power most can't handle. Number 8, the zero-tolerance policy implementation. There comes a point where she simply refuses to entertain nonsense. She's done explaining herself to people who twist her words, done giving second chances to those who repeatedly prove they don't deserve them, done tolerating mediocrity, small-mindedness, and energy-draining interactions. At this stage, she becomes ruthlessly selective about who and what gets her time. It's not about arrogance, it's about efficiency. The phrase, "I don't have time for this," stops being something she says and starts being the law she lives by. She used to give explanations, trying to soften the impact of her decisions, not anymore. Now, when she senses manipulation, she shuts it down immediately. When she notices someone playing mind games, she walks away mid-sentence. When drama knocks on her door, it finds an empty house. People notice the shift. The ones who once relied on her patience and understanding now feel the cold steel of her boundaries. Some try to guilt-trip her, calling her heartless or too harsh, but she doesn't flinch. She's done letting others guilt her into tolerating what drains her. This isn't about bitterness, it's about clarity. She knows her worth, and she's not afraid to act accordingly. If someone brings negativity, she removes them. If a situation disrupts her peace, she exits. If something no longer aligns with her growth, she lets it go without looking back. This is when she truly becomes untouchable. Not because she isolates herself, but because she no longer entertains distractions. And as a result, she moves faster, achieves more, and feels lighter than ever before. She's not interested in fighting unnecessary battles. She simply refuses to step onto the battlefield in the first place. Number 9. The tactical engagement strategy. At a certain point, the Sigma female realizes that complete detachment, while powerful, is not always the most effective strategy. Being entirely off the grid, emotionally or socially, can limit her ability to maneuver in a world that thrives on connections. So instead of remaining entirely withdrawn, she learns a new skill, calculated engagement. This is not about playing nice, it's about playing smart. She stops seeing interactions as burdens and starts seeing them as chess moves. Every conversation, every alliance, every piece of information shared is intentional. There are no wasted words, no unnecessary emotional investments. She engages when it benefits her, when it serves a purpose, when it moves her closer to her goals. People may mistake this for manipulation, but it's nothing of the sort. Unlike manipulators, she isn't deceitful, she's simply deliberate. She does not entertain empty flattery. She does not give away her thoughts freely. She does not engage in meaningless debates. Instead, she listens, observes, and, when necessary, speaks with precision. She learns how to blend in when needed, to use social dynamics to her advantage without compromising who she is. She understands that influence isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about knowing when to speak, what to say, and who to say it to. Unlike others who waste energy on petty conflicts or pointless drama, she treats every interaction as a strategic investment. If it's not yielding results, she withdraws without hesitation. If it serves her mission, she leans in just enough to extract what's needed. This shift changes everything. She no longer dreads dealing with people. She simply handles them on her terms. And in doing so, she remains in control, untangled by unnecessary distractions, moving forward with the precision of someone who knows exactly what she's doing. Number 10. The inevitable mystery that forms around her. By this stage, she has become an enigma, not by accident, but by design. She has cultivated a life so independent, so unpredictable, that people struggle to put her into a box. She is a paradox, visible yet untouchable, present yet unreachable. The moment someone thinks they've figured her out, she moves differently, making them question everything they assumed. This isn't about playing games or seeking attention. It's about control. The less people know about her, her next move, her real thoughts, her true motivations, the less power they have over her. She has seen how easily people betray, misunderstand, and distort what they think they know, so she removes their ability to do so. Her unpredictability makes others uneasy. They crave patterns, familiarity, a sense of knowing where someone stands. But with her, that certainty never comes. One day she's fully engaged, the next she's nowhere to be found. One moment she's speaking in depth, the next she's observing in silence. It keeps people guessing, keeps them watching, but never grants them access. Rumors start to swirl. Some call her mysterious, others say she's distant, cold, or hard to read. But what they don't realize is that she wants it this way. She has no interest in being understood by the masses. Only a select few, those who have proven themselves, get a glimpse beyond the surface. At this point, her silence speaks louder than words. Her absence creates more intrigue than presence. And her refusal to conform becomes the thing that draws people in the most. She doesn't seek attention, but it follows her. She doesn't demand respect, but it's given. And the beauty of it all, she remains untouchable, not because she hides, but because she's built a life where no one, not society, not expectations, not even fleeting emotions, has control over her anymore. The final evolution, owning who you are. By now, you've seen the journey for what it is, raw, unfiltered, and entirely your own. The unexpected stages you've gone through weren't mistakes. They weren't signs that something was wrong with you. They were necessary. Every shift, every cutoff, every moment of solitude, and every battle with doubt was molding you into the woman you were always meant to be. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to follow the script that society hands out so freely. You were designed to walk your own path, one that others may never fully understand, and that's perfectly fine. The world may try to label you as difficult, distant, or too much, but the truth is, they just aren't used to women who don't beg for validation, who don't tolerate nonsense, and who refuse to play along with empty expectations. You don't need approval. You don't need permission. You don't need anyone to understand why you move the way you do. What you do need is to continue sharpening your mind, protecting your peace, and living life on your terms. Some will admire you, some will resent you, some will try to mimic you, but none will ever be you. And that is your greatest power. So if you ever find yourself questioning whether this road is worth it, remind yourself of one thing. The rarest women are the ones who refuse to be molded. And you are rare. Stay that way. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.